right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under the penalties and pains of perjury? You can have a seat. And ma'am, I understand you're not feeling well, so if you need a break, please let us know. The court's permit. Ma'am, if you could state your name and spell your last name, please.
Randy Bisson, B-I-S-S-O-N.
And where, if anywhere, do you have a business?
Right next door to the pepper spray store.
All right, and when you say the pepper spray store, whose store are you referring to?
Brian Blackton's.
All right. That's, where is that?
45 North State Street. Mine's 45 Manhattan.
All right. How close are these two establishments?
It's in the same building.
From your store, do you have a view of the parking lot?
Yes.
I want to draw your attention to May 21st, 2011, about an incident at the store, Brian's store. You were interviewed about this incident by the Concord PD, do you recall?
Yes.
I want you to tell the court, please, what happened that day, May 21st, 2011, and specifically start at about 11:30 in the morning, before Brian was even there.
Okay. Well, I get there at 10, and he opens at 11:30. I was waiting for my first client to arrive. I heard a whole bunch of motorcycles pull up, so it made me look. There was like 5 to 7 motorcycles. They got off and went next door. They were only there about maybe a minute to 2 minutes. Got back on their bikes and they left. I looked at the clock and I noticed it was 11:30, 35, something like that, which usually Brian opens right about 11:30. He's really good at that. So I thought to myself, well, he just lost a big sale. So I was going to tell him later on that many motorcycles had pulled up and whatnot.
Now, let me just stop you there. Did you know whether or not Brian was there at that time?
Well, I did go outside and I looked because like I said, I looked at the clock and I was like, that's weird. He's usually here. And I noticed he wasn't open. So I went back into my shop. My client arrived. I couldn't tell you what time it was, but I heard the motorcycles pull back up. It was probably, I don't know, 15, 20, maybe a half an hour. They all pulled up.
All right, a half an hour later, so noonish?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Describe for the court exactly what you observed from that point.
Well, I heard them pull back up, so I thought, well, they came back. I was working on my client's hair. I don't know how long in between from the time they pulled up to the time that we started hearing some real loud yelling. I thought that they were just all joking around at that point, because he usually has a lot of people come and hang out there. But it did get louder and louder, and my client was like, what's going on over there? I said, oh, they must be messing around. But then I heard, get the hell out of my store from Brian. And then a few seconds later, I heard a guy say, come outside and I'll show you, I'll kick your ass.
Is that Brian?
No, it was somebody else.
One of the motorcyclists?
Yes. And then I was in the middle of a color, so I couldn't stop. But then as soon as I was done applying the color, she's like, what's going on over there? And that's when I noticed the 2 Concord police officers there, so I went next door. And Brian was visibly upset, shaking. And he said, oh my God, I just got robbed.
Objection. Objection. You're second.
You said when you talked to him, it was right at that time?
It was right as the Concord police pulled up. I went next door to find out what was going on, and that's what I observed.
And he was visibly upset, you said?
Yes.
Objection is to leading me to the question.
No, I'm going to allow that, but go ahead.
The state would argue that that is an excited utterance, no?
It's not. The question was, what happened?
Sustain. Sustain.
All right, so Concord police showed up. You don't go into what he said, but you had a little brief conversation with Brian.
Yes.
All right, and then what did you do? Go back to your shop, or?
I had mentioned that they had pulled up prior, that they had left, and that I was going to mention to him that he had missed the big sale or not, and that's when the 2 officers, one of the officers, had kind of heard what I had said, that I had seen them pull up, and seen them pull up the second time.
All right. Few more questions. You said they came back. Could you recognize them as the same group that had been there earlier, or?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that 5 to 7 motorcycles pulled up, they left, they came back, like I said, within a half an hour period.
It appeared to you?
Yeah, they were the
Same group?
same.
Okay. Now, you said it was real loud yelling, it got louder and louder, and you heard Brian say, "Get the hell out of my store," right?
Yeah.
Get the hell out of my store. What else did he say in conjunction with that? Anything?
Honestly, all I heard was "get the hell out of my store," and then I heard the other guy that was standing like in the parking lot, and he said, "Step outside."
Hearsay. The other guy, we don't know who that is.
Response?
That's fine. I was only asking about what Brian said.
Sorry.
Anyway. It's all right.
Okay.
Did you get a good enough look at any of them to identify them or no?
No.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
My name's Eric. I just have a couple of questions for you. At some point, you see the motorcycles come back, right? And did you see them go in the store?
I didn't see them go in the store, no.
Okay, but the motorcycles come back. There's a short period of time that they're not. Some of the people are not on the motorcycles, right?
Right.
Do you remember seeing any women on the motorcycles?
There was 2, I think.
Okay. Did they go in the store, or did they stay on the motorcycles?
No, they didn't go in.
Okay. And so for a short period of time after the men got off the motorcycles, they were in the store, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And initially, you didn't hear anything initially, but then after a couple minutes, you stopped, it got louder.
It sounded like they were like wrestling almost, like they were goofing off, like being really loud and rambunctious, I guess.
Okay.
is the
In
best
fact,
way to-
you were stating, you said you thought everybody was joking around.
Right, because of the nature of his store, he has people come and hang out, and I thought maybe that they were just joking around, but
And then, as time passed, it got louder. Fair to say?
very loud.
Okay. Initially, it wasn't loud. Later, it was loud.
Right from the get-go, it was loud enough that we heard it, but it got even louder. I mean, we heard some action going on, but then it got really loud.
Do you share a wall between the stores?
We do, but you can hear everything. It's
You can. Yeah, that's what I was getting at. So initially, you think there's some joking. Later, in a short period of time, it starts to get loud, right?
yeah,
Were people outside, and you saw the people on the motorcycle outside?
the women
Okay. But at some point, you saw men outside, right?
when they were leaving.
Okay. And you heard Brian Blackton make some statements, right? He was yelling also, right? You gotta say yes or no.
Oh, yes.
Was he swearing?
I just heard "get the hell out of my store."
Okay. That's all you heard. He said, "Get the hell out of my store," right? Yes?
Yes.
He never said, "Give me the vest back," did he?
Like I said, no, I didn't hear that, but I was working on my client. I was
Right.
trying to.
I understand that, but you said, I mean, you were clear when you were interviewed by the police. They'd asked you, did you ever hear him demand something back? You never did, right? He just said, "Get out of my store,"
Get the
right?
hell out of my store.
Nothing further.
Just a brief follow-up. The 2 statements you said you heard were "get the hell out of my store," Brian said that, and then someone, you don't know who, come outside and they'll kick your ass.
He said, "I'll kick your effing ass."
Oh, kick your ass, meaning F-U-C-K-I-N-G.
Yeah.
That was not Brian?
That was definitely not Brian.
Not one of the women?
That was definitely not one of the women.
Okay. What, if any, other bits of the yelling could you make out? Any, or is that it?
It just sounded like fighting, and like I said, I thought at first it might have been joking. I didn't make any of the other words out. All I clearly heard was him say, "Get the hell out of my store," and the other man said, "Step outside and I'll kick your effing ass."
Okay, ma'am, thank you very much.
Nothing further. Your Honor.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Bishop, here you go?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
He calls Brian Blackton. Sir, if you would please remain standing and raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, under penalties and pains of perjury? Please have a seat and state your full name and spell your last name for the record.
Brian Blackton, Blackd.
Tell the court, please, where, if anywhere, you have a business in Concord.
485 North State Street.
What is that business? What is the nature of that business?
It's a combination of business items. It's a camping, survivalist, pepper spray, and now recently a gun store.
All right. And where in relation to your store is the store of Brandy Bisson?
It's attached to the left-hand side. If you're in the building, it's on the left hand. Looking at the building, she's on the right hand end of the building. 1/4 of the building. I have 3/4 of the building looking at the building at the long left.
Okay. I want to draw your attention to May 21st, 2011 at about noon or shortly after. And I want you to describe for the court, please, in detail what events occurred. Well, let's start with this. What time did you show up?
I was actually running a little late. I had a shoulder injury and I was just running late that day. I was in a lot of pain. My arm was in a sling.
Objection, it's not responsive. What time did you show up?
I'm gonna allow it.
I normally get in about 11:30. I got in about, I'm guessing 5 minutes to 12-ish or so, somewhere in that time frame.
All right. So you normally open at 11:30?
Correct.
All right. You got there maybe 5 of them. What, if anything, happened unusual shortly after you arrived? And then how soon after you arrived was it?
I was in the process of opening the store, and by that I mean opening the shades, turning on lights, getting it ready for business when 5 motorcycles pulled into the parking lot.
All right, so 5 motorcycles pull in, and could you describe in detail to the court what happened next?
The door burst open, and 5 individuals, males, came into the store. 3 took a position blocking me between my front counter and the exit of the store. 3, they took the stance of basically crossing their arms. 1 individual stood at the door facing outside as acting like security, if you will, and another individual went directly to a mannequin that was in the store to the left-hand side, about 10 or 12 feet into the store, and started tearing the mannequin to take a vest off it and tore an arm off the mannequin. That's how the situation began.
Okay. Tore a vest off this mannequin. The mannequin was in the store, you said?
In, correct.
All right. And you had this vest on the mannequin, is that right?
It was.
Essentially, the mannequin was wearing the vest?
Yes.
May I approach one? I'm showing you a paper bag, State's Exhibit 1. Inside the paper bag is an item I want you to pull out and take a look at it. All right, you're now holding up a vest with all kinds of stuff on it. Do you recognize what that is?
I do.
What is it?
It was the vest that was on the mannequin in my store.
All right, so that's the vest we're talking about, State's Exhibit 1.
Yes.
All right, I want you to explain to the court in detail what happened. You said 3 of them were standing. Describe it further in relation to where you were, where those 3 men stood, and where the mannequin was.
Okay. If you walk in through the door of my store, directly ahead, there is a angled rack. Just to the right of that, about 6 feet, is a walkway that goes behind my display counter, my cashier's counter. The mannequin, as you walked in the front door, was approximately 12 feet to the left at about a 45-degree angle. And I was in front of the display counter, and the 3 men stood blocking that 6 foot or so walkway. And 1 man was at the door and 1 man was at the mannequin.
Man. With the court's permission, if the witness would step down and just draw a diagram of what he is verbally describing. Just the best you can, draw the floor plan of the store and put essentially a circle that says me in it to represent where you were. All right, now, let me just ask you a few questions here. Obviously, you've got a little diagram here, and in the middle, you've got a circle, and in that circle is a B. What is the B?
Brian.
Brian, that's you?
Yes.
All right. The entrance to the store is where?
It's approximately the middle of the store, right here. This distance is approximately 20 feet total depth, and it's about 40 plus feet long.
All right. Now, where is the parking lot where the motorcycles were parked?
The parking lot is here. This is all the parking area.
All right. And where were the motorcycles? Just roughly.
I believe they were in that area, and I had, that's the sidewalk there, and there's a little sidewalk right there and there.
What'd you say those?
These are sidewalk areas, and those were approximate locations of the bike, of the motorcycle.
All right. When you say these, you drew some lines in the parking lot.
Lines are the motorcycles.
All right. There is an X in the location that you said was your front door. What does that X represent?
One of the men was standing, he was in the doorway with the door open with his back to the store looking out. One man was next to the mannequin taking the vest off, and the other 3 were right here.
All right, so you've got M underlined, that's the mannequin.
Mannequin.
X next to it, guy taking vest off.
Correct.
3 X's in front of you, between you and the guy taking the vest off the mannequin.
Correct.
And you, all right, you can sit back down. And you said, no, actually, move to admit this as an exhibit.
Any objection?
No, no.
State's Exhibit 3.
The 3 guys, the men standing in front of you, you said had their arms crossed.
Yes.
All right. Now, I want you to describe, they take up these positions, I want you to describe in detail for the judge what happened from there, what they were saying, doing, everything that happened.
At the first instance, the door burst open, and the 3 men immediately took the 3X position to create a blockade so I could not leave the store. 1 man went immediately to the mannequin, and 1 stood in the doorway looking out with his back into the store. And it was the 3 men at the time, the 3Xs, said nothing. Upon observing the man taking the mannequin, I started asking him what he was doing,
You said taking the mannequin?
taking the vest off the mannequin, asked him what he was doing, and then I started demanding to know what they were doing, who they thought they were. They just couldn't come in and take something from my store, and started yelling at them at that point to get out. After the vest had been taken from the mannequin, the two men, the one at the door and the one who took the vest, exited the store first. The other three started backing out of the store facing me. We were exchanging words at that point. The man on the far left, when I said get the hell out of my store, he actually put his toes just over the threshold and said, I'm out of your store. I said, you need to leave the store, including the parking lot right now. And that's when he threatened me. He asked me to come outside so he could kick my fucking ass. And I was in a sling at the time. And I said, you're a tough guy, 5-on-1, these are about great odds for you. I said, and during this whole process, most of them were silent, except the one who actually had the vest, Mr. Norton, he was closest to the street at the time. The man off to the right-hand side line actually went over to his motorcycle and he started screaming at me, he said, this is why you're having problems with us, it's your attitude. And he said, you know what, I think I'm going to charge you with receiving stolen property, that's what I'm going to do. And during that time, I was upset, yelling, swearing at them, telling them to get out of there. You're cops, what are you doing? I was objecting during this whole ordeal.
Okay. How heated or loud was this exchange?
Very loud and heated.
On both sides?
Absolutely.
Okay. What, if anything, did you feel in terms of being intimidated?
Well, I was intimidated. I was one-armed. It was 5-on-1. They were all dressed in motorcycle gang garb. And the odds were obviously not in my favor. If anything physical were to take place, I couldn't get by the three to stop the person taking the vest off the mannequin. So I was pinned behind an area of my store. And in the physical condition I was in, I wasn't about to try to push by them because of my injuries.
All right. Do you see in the courtroom today any of these individuals you're describing?
One.
First, tell me which one you see.
He was actually one of the three individuals of the three X's. He was on the far right-hand side at the time with his arms crossed. And then once they were all outside, he was the one who jumped in between the man who threatened to drag me outside and kick my ass. And then he just said, hey, why don't we just call this a day? And I said, your day hasn't even begun. You don't even realize what has started because of what you've done.
All right, you say you think you recognize that guy?
I do.
And you point him out?
He is the defendant.
May the record reflect the witness to identify the defendant.
Sure.
He
Now,
actually
we'll deal with
has.
that.
Subject to
We'll
cross-examination.
deal with that on cross, yes.
Right. And just let's be clear. You could not pick him out of a photo array, right?
No, because at the time he was at the store, his appearance was a lot different. He was in motorcycle garb, he had hair at the time. And a lot of the photos that I was shown were of bald people, and that's not the way he appeared that day.
What were these guys wearing, by the way?
They all had Road Dawgs motorcycle vests on, and as far as their clothing, I don't know, because I was paying a lot of attention to waistbands to see if they were armed and if it was going to escalate, because it was a violent situation.
Now, when you say Road Dawg vests, what are you talking about? Is that the same vest?
It's a vest similar to this with the same type of wording and patches and pins.
With the same banner that says Road Dawgs?
Yes.
Now, what, if any, permission did you give to them, any of them, to take your vest from the store?
None. I specifically told them not to take my vest. They couldn't walk into my store and take anything they wanted. And it was stated over and over and over and over again, and it was yelled at them, and they couldn't get anything.
So you absolutely did not give them permission?
No, I do not.
Explain to the court, please, actually, before we get to that, by the way, what if any, value or purpose does this vest have to you as a display in your store?
As a display item, it was a draw for customers. At one point, there's a motorcycle shop right across the street, and a lot of his customers come across the street, and actually my customers, they use my parking lot a lot to park because he doesn't have one. He has the side of the road, and they'll a lot of times park in my lot and go out across the street and do business over there before they come into mine or after they come into my store.
Now, you had this on a mannequin. What kind of mannequin was it, by the way?
It was a female mannequin. I have two of them. They're usually, typically, I had them out on the side of the road to garner attention to the store. There was actually a newspaper article written about one of them at one point in time, locally, as a draw to the business. And that's typically where they were during the daytime when I was open.
Okay. What, if any, unusual changes did you make to the appearance of the vest before you displayed it?
I actually, at one point, took the New Hampshire State Police patch that I had in my personal collection. I've got approximately 5,000 patches in my collection. And I actually took one out and I duct taped it upside down on the back of the vest. And I took the bulldog in the middle of the vest and I turned it upside down on the mannequin. And I actually had a piece of paper that is not here. And I had girls written over the dog, superimposed on a piece of paper with yellow Sharpie for my mannequin girls out in front of the store. So it was the Road Girls in front of the store.
Instead of Road Girls?
Yes.
All right. A couple of things. The patch, the New Hampshire patch, that was yours from your
Yes.
personal collection. You didn't get that from somebody
No.
else?
No,
Okay.
that's mine.
And anything else on there?
There's actually quite a few pins on here that are mine, that I put on, that I used to actually own a police and fire supply store. So a lot of these pins are my personal pins that were in the store that were put on in addition to the ones that were already on it.
What was the purpose of putting the patch upside down and all that?
Well, it's a political statement, actually. In times of distress, we put the American flag upside down when we're in distress. And in particular, I have a lawsuit pending against the New Hampshire State Police. And one of the original signers of the Road Dawgs is a lieutenant in the state police who I feel has personal animosity toward me. And I feel as though corrupt actions have taken place over the years in the state police that I have actually had to testify to at the state legislature. And that's why the state police patch was upside down, because of the corruption in the agency. And part of the Road Dawgs patch being upside down was the fact that he was one of the original founders of the Road Dawgs. And as far as I'm concerned, it looks like a Marine Corps bulldog, and they're a disgrace to the Marine Corps, and it's a political statement. And as far as I'm concerned, it's just like putting the American flag upside down.
All right. Did they, what did they, any one of them, say to you about sort of offering to take the colors off the vest, you keep the vest, we'll take the colors?
They didn't. Sergeant Berry actually told me that over the telephone.
Hearsay.
I would accept that portion of the testimony that says that they didn't.
Okay. So they never made that offer at the store?
No.
Explain to the court now, aside from the items on it that were yours, how did you come to acquire the rest of it? The vest and the colors, what we've been calling the colors, the other patches that weren't yours?
Well,
Original.
the whole vest was in a storage locker that was seized for non-payment. That was actually owned by Mike Walchak, the former chief's son of the Concord Police, who I'm friendly with. And this was actually in that storage unit, and I purchased items from that unit when it was seized, and in order to hold on to them.
Well, so you just expand on that if you would, and explain the contents of the storage were being sold?
Yes, it's what that storage unit does is they actually take the property and have yard sale type atmosphere and sell things off to recoup the money that are lost.
And when you say money that is lost, we're talking about after a process where someone doesn't pay for their unit?
Yes, there's actually a process. They're served a letter. I actually was asked to give Mike Walchak the letter of seizure because he was a friend of mine and I was friends with the person running the storage unit. And to facilitate trying to get payment, I actually gave Mike Walchak the notice of seizure, and at that time he told me, he said, well,
Objection.
Without getting into what people said, you purchased at auction, you said.
Objection to the leading nature of this question.
I'm going to allow it.
You purchased the vest, those pieces that you didn't put on later at an auction.
It was, yeah, it wasn't an auction per se like Storage Wars, but it's more of a yard sale type recovery than a Storage Wars type that you see on TV.
All right, and that was held by the storage company?
Yes,
To get rid of this property?
yes,
Okay, and recover some of their loss?
yes,
You bought the vest aside from the pieces that weren't yours?
among other things.
There, okay. Thank you, sir. You may quiet.
The court's mission. Thank you. What described this guy's hair back in May of 2011?
I believe it was short.
Said he had hair.
And I believe a mustache at the time.
Said, what color was his hair?
I believe it was gray.
May I approach witness?
Yeah.
No. I'm going to show you, Mr. Blackton, some photographs. You saw a photograph in the lineups, right? You said that you couldn't identify him because he was bald at the time. He's bald in that one, right? Driver's license?
I just would object in terms of foundation, what is he showing?
Well, all right, I just said a driver's license. Did it appear to be the guy behind you?
Similar.
I'm going to show you the Department of Veteran Affairs. Does that appear to be the guy behind you?
Similar. Yeah.
Yeah, no hair in that one, right? Show you the armed forces. You appear to be bald in that one.
Appears to be in that one, yes.
Show you another uniformed services, United States military ID. You appear to be bald in that one.
Yes.
So it's your recollection that a year ago he had hair.
Yeah, actually quite a few of the men had growth on their face. Some of them had little hair growths under their lip and so forth that were more stubbly than anything.
Okay. But you said he had hair, and that's why you couldn't pick him out of the lineup, right?
Yeah, I actually described him as having slate gray eyes to the police, is what I had described.
I'm talking about hair, Mr. Blackman. You told us today under oath he had hair, right?
Yeah, sure.
Surprised you know he hasn't had hair over the years.
Well, I know people that grow hair that shave every day, so.
You were told that you, by one of the people in the store, well, let's get one thing straight. You got a license plate GRN, right?
I did.
Okay. You in your statement told the police that the guy on the motorcycle GRN was the guy that took the vest off the mannequin, right?
He did.
And you saw the guy with the GRN take the vest and walk out of the store, right?
Not quite. He outside. There was some interaction between two of them. He ended up leaving with the vest on his bike.
Right. GRN had the vest on his bike outside.
Yes, and then part of it blew off down the street, and people pulled over and gathered up some of them, I'm assuming the patches, and handed them in between each other, and then took off.
So GRN took the vest off the mannequin and drove away. Walked out of the store, right?
Well, I'm not sure who actually left the store with it, because I was discussing that with the three people standing in front of me.
Okay. Well, didn't you just testify in direct examination that the guy that took the vest off the mannequin was also the one that took it out of the store and get on the motorcycle GRN?
I don't know if they said he left the store with it, but he was the one that had it outside, yes.
So you saw him take it off the mannequin,
He did.
right? You saw him outside with it, right?
Yes.
And you saw him get on a motorcycle and leave with it, right?
Yes.
That was not this guy, right?
No.
The political statement that you talked about,
Yep.
I approached the exhibit. The political statement, so you had state police upside down, right?
I did.
You had Manchester police upside down, right?
I don't know if I did it with Manchester.
You had the Marine Corps Bulldog upside down, right?
I had the one that said Road Dawgs on it. I did.
You have the Manchester police patch upside down, right?
Well, I don't think that's, if it's a single pin, it might have been turned. I purposely turned the thin blue line ones on their side, I did.
Well, you have a special reaction team upside down, right? And you have an issue with the special reaction team also?
No, it was basically that's what they were acting like that day, so that's why that was,
Well, you haven't touched this vest.
no, but
Before the vest was taken, this was upside down, right?
it was, yeah.
Massachusetts State Police, you have a political statement against them also, that's upside down, right?
It is now, yes.
Yeah. And,
Some of them are single pins that you can actually turn and they'll actually move around.
some of these are double pins
Yep.
that you purposely put upside down, right?
Absolutely, yes.
And you used to put this, these are upside down, the canine's upside down, a lot of things, right? You, your political statement that you made, you used to put this mannequin outside, you put Road Girls on it, right?
Yeah.
You don't like the Road Dogs, right?
I actually like some of the Road Dogs, not all of them. No.
You don't like the state police, right?
I actually have some state police that are my customers, so I don't know, not as a whole, you can't say that, no.
Well, didn't you just tell us that you have sued against the state police?
I do.
It's a corrupt
Doesn't mean I
organization.
don't like all state troopers. I mean,
It's
I'm
a-
the agency.
It's a corrupt organization.
It is.
Okay. A lot of corruption in police, right?
Certainly, I was in internal affairs, I can absolutely say that, yes, sir.
And you had that mannequin out there with a vest to taunt people, taunt
No.
police.
No.
Didn't you tell Officer Hadland that you had a mannequin and all these things turned upside down to taunt the police?
No, I've had that vest for over 3 years prior to it being an issue with anybody in the world.
So you have the mannequin on display outside on North State Street with the state police patches, Bulldogs, all these patches upside down with Road Girls, right?
Yep.
And that's on public display not to taunt people?
No, I don't think you can have a public opinion and not have to taunt people.
You were wearing a firearm that particular day, weren't you?
I was.
You were asked by Officer Hackland shortly after noontime who owned the vest, and you told him it was a friend of yours, but you wouldn't tell Officer Hackland who it was, right?
I believe I said I know who it had belonged to, but I wouldn't tell him. No, I wouldn't.
You said, I know who it belongs to, but I'm
I
not
know
going
who it
to.
belonged to, but
I'm not going to He asked you who, right?
Right.
And you said a friend, but I'm not going to tell you who.
Absolutely.
And that is Jeff Busky, right?
It is.
This area, you said it's about 20 by 40 in the store,
Approximately.
and it's full of, the police went in and did some measurements here, and it's pictures and things of that nature, right?
Yes.
It's full of displays and glass displays and other mannequins, things of that nature. It's a pretty full store, right?
It is.
Okay. Not a lot of room to move around.
There's significant walking room. That area where the 3 X's are, that's about 6 feet wide or so. So there's plenty of room to walk around in front of the cases.
You were threatened with an arrest for receiving stolen property, right?
Yes.
And they were talking about the vest or the patches, right?
They were
Whoever.
talking about the vest or, yeah.
Okay. You were swearing, right? Yelling to get out of the store.
I was.
You recall who threatened you with arrest?
Mr. Norton,
You know the trooper that was there, right? You know him?
Mr. Tyne?
Yes.
Yes, the one that didn't get charged, yes.
Right. He wasn't charged, right?
No, he was not charged.
You're telling us that John Evans, he say anything to you? Other than let's call it a day?
Yeah, there was some discussion. Basically, I believe he had said to me that he wanted to call it a day and didn't respond when I told him to get out of the store numerous times. Wouldn't let me pass, but wouldn't respond. Was stoic. Stood there blocking.
So he never had the vest in the store, right? Because he's blocking you according to your testimony.
Yes, he was blocking me.
So he never had the vest in the store. You never saw him with the vest, right?
In the store? No,
Yes.
I did not.
You
see
never
him.
saw John Evans with the store outside of the vest, right?
No.
And at some point, you were exchanging words with Tom, right, outside?
Yes.
And the two of you were threatening to kick each other's asses.
No, that's not correct, sir.
You didn't say, quote, you're going to kick a scrawny ass?
No, I did not.
But the word, you were heated and time was heated, right?
Yes.
And that was outside after the fact, right?
That was during the exchange in the store because Mr. Tyne was on the left-hand X, and that was during the time they were in the store and on the way out, and when he put his toes over the threshold, to say, I'm out of your store.
Time put his toes over the threshold?
Yes.
And at that point, everybody else was outside, right?
Everybody was, Norton was at his bike. There was another bike to the right-hand side. That had just been started. 2 women were on the bikes, and the other 2 men were standing near Tyne at the front door, so I still couldn't exit the store.
But you were near the door, Time just outside the door with his toe over the threshold?
3 of them, right.
Okay. Everyone else is outside?
Yes.
Okay. And it was at that point you and Tyne are going at it, swearing at each other, right?
Yes.
You're telling Tyne, Tyne's saying things to you, you're saying things to Tyne, right? You said I've got a problem with state police or words to that effect.
No, I don't think I said that.
Well, what were you yelling?
I was basically yelling to get off the property. They can't just take anything they want. Who do you think you are?
Miss Bisson heard this, right? Miss Bisson?
Yes, she heard part of it, yes.
Okay. Yeah, she heard you saying, get out of my store, get off my property.
Right.
When you and Tyne were going at it, you remember John trying to say to you, hey, stepping in between you and Tyne.
I wouldn't make it that casual, no.
Well, at some point he was trying to quell the dispute between you and Tyne, right?
He actually got in between us and in a stern manner put his hand up and said, let's just call this a day, why don't wait? Or something to those words.
And this storage unit, it wasn't an auction. You initially told the police you bought it at auction, but it wasn't an auction.
No, it actually, some of it did go to the auction over on Hall Street, and...
You know Earl Gage, right?
I do.
You know that with Lieutenant McGuire spoke with Earl Gage about how he disposes of property, don't you?
I don't.
Okay. Did you ever attend an auction for Mr. Gage?
I've taken part in them. They're not auctions, they're
Right.
more yard sales, but we also, because I helped him out quite a bit, because we were in business together, we actually took some stuff over to the auction hall on Hall Street and auctioned off, so it's done in a dual manner.
I'm talking about this particular storage area by,
It was a multi-unit, once it was cleaned out, it was put into a 10 by 30 unit with a bunch of other units.
okay. And you used to help Mr. Gage clean out lockers, right?
Sometimes, yes.
Okay. And that's where you saw this vest when you were cleaning out this particular locker, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. In the course of helping Mr. Gage clean out this locker, that's when you came across this vest.
Yep.
And you knew that when you saw it was Lusky's, right?
I assumed it was because Jeff had been living with Mike, and he was one of the original Road Dawgs.
I have no further questions.
Thank you, Item 9.
Thank you, sir. Like, Mr. Counsel.
So back to that.
Sure, put it in the back.
Please.
I'm just gonna take this down here as much as 3. Give us a quick minute. Unless the fence wants it left up. Do you want this left up for now?
Sure.
Your Honor, it stands, no further witnesses.
All right, thank you. State press.
Yes, Your Honor.
Your Honor, at this juncture, the evidence before the court is that the defendant acted in concert with another person to remove this vest or to steal this vest. The allegation of the complaint is that the intent was to permanently deprive the party of the theft statute, to give a permanent deprivation of property. This property was immediately brought to, in short order, brought to the police station, handed over to the police where statements were provided. The evidence before the court is that in the process of attempting to reach the owner of the GRN motorcycle, Gary Norton showed up with a second individual and then a third and fourth, where the vest was turned over. This is not a situation, I think, beyond a reasonable level, even a light most favorable to the state, that they could establish, or they have established, that there was an intent to permanently deprive the owner of that vest. The evidence is such right now that it appears most likely Mr. Busky's. That's the evidence, and on cross-examination, I think what Mr. Blackman has said, it was Mr. Busky's, and he's told different officers he was holding it from Mr. Busky. The complaint alleges it was the property of Brian Blackman. For all other reasons, I would submit, based on this evidence, there's not sufficient cases for finding a guilty, even in the light most favorable to the state.
In the state would argue, Your Honor, that taking the evidence in the light most favorable to the state, there is sufficient evidence to find the elements of the offense, including the purpose to deprive. They did not want Blackman to have this vest. That is clear. The circumstantial evidence would indicate that they didn't like the way he was displaying it, and they didn't want him to have it. And I would point out that the definition of property of another doesn't mean that this person has to have 100% interest in this, undisputed and 100% ownership. As long as he has some interest in it, that meets the definition of property of another, and that's in RSA 637-2 Roman 4. I think given that definition, certainly Mr. Blackman had interest in that property sufficient to make it his property within the definition. And for that reason, it certainly should not be dismissed. That they took it to the Concord Police Department, I think the court can easily conclude was an afterthought, a whoops. They went to the end of their ride first, not to the Concord Police Department. Not only that, but they did not call the police and say, look, this guy we think's got stolen property in the store. No. They didn't make a report ahead of time. They just went in and they took it from him because they didn't like him to have it. And I think that the evidence in its totality, it's pretty clear they had a purpose to deprive him of it. And he had an interest in it. And it should not be dismissed at this juncture, Your Honor.
Anything else on the motion?
The only other issue, Your Honor, is the complaint says with another. We've heard testimony, either 4 or 5 people entered that store on a double jeopardy basis. We don't know who that other person is, and to survive a potential other prosecution, I guess they should have indicated, based on the evidence that they had, that it was Gary Norton, but they just said it and another.
Well, fortunately for us, the defendant's double jeopardy concerns aren't at issue in that. And so that's not even an issue before the court. If somebody else gets charged someday, maybe. But also, I would point out that by the defendant's own admission to the Concord officers, he was the guy that Norton gave the vest to, and he was the guy that walked out of the store. Mr. Blackman may or may not be confused as to who did what, but the defendant sure wasn't. And he told the Concord officers, I walked out with that vest after Norton gave it to me. And there's a written statement by the defendant that also says Norton gave him the vest and he walked out of the store. So there's nothing to this argument.
I'm going to deny the motion.
Call John.
I do.
Please take a seat. You introduce yourself to Judge Weber.
Sir, my name is Jonathan L. Evans, EVA